Hi and welcome to MJT's Wycombe Wanderers Plus. And here we go again, just had a phone call, the first one. And the question is, will we be talking about lying dead behind the wall, as Fred does for United? Do America own English football now? Will they change the rules? We're going to have a look about changing the rules. Why has it been such an odd season? Why have so many teams won away? In fact, more than they've won at home. What's going on in Europe? What's going on at Derby? And what the flip is going on at Wycombe? We won a game. Kieran, what's going on at Wycombe? We won a game.
We won a football match. You know, the first thing I'd say is the thing that you were most passionate about in your post-match analysis was Grimmer, as you mentioned to me beforehand as well. I looked at the goals. A little bit harsh, I would say. The first one, yeah. The first one, yes. The first one, no one really does anything. Everyone just stands back and watches him score a goal. And the second one, it is a very good finish, in all fairness to the bloke.
But he could see the whole goal through because he was so far back.
I know, but I think to suggest it was entirely his fault is a little bit harsh. I'd say you have to give a lot of credit to the attacker as well. But then in saying that, flipping well done to Wycombe for getting back in the game and actually pulling through.
I have to be honest, and I'm going to probably say at the end of the next little recording I do, that I do apologise a bit because, well, I never wanted to make these. I listened to some of the other people's sort of videos and the like, and I always think that's a bit horrible. And these weren't done to be horrible to Wycombe Wanderers players, so I've got to be careful that I don't end up doing the same. Just because I don't think he's the best player on the football pitch doesn't mean I should be nasty about him.
But then in saying that, you are allowed to be critical, and you're supposed to be critical.
But I have to be careful where I made comments about Akinfenwa staying in the dressing room, sort of, cutting up the oranges. That was over the top. I shouldn't. That was over the top. I do apologise to Akinfenwa for that. I shouldn't have said that. I was very emotional at the time of losing that game and how bad that game was particularly. So I have to be a bit careful. I must pinch myself before making the videos.
It shows what a win can do to your mentality, doesn't it? Just a whole lot happier.
It was very odd. It was very odd. I do seriously think Grimmer shouldn't be on the football pitch. Trouble is, I'm not convinced McCarthy should either. We haven't seen the best out of him. I remember when he did play for Wycombe, he looked really good, didn't he, before?
Well, when he was on loan from, what was it? Was it Millwall? Like back in the day? Like in League 1 and 2, he was our best player. I think he did win Player of the Season, didn't he? In like 2015, 16, something.
So do you think he maybe he's just not getting the game time?
Maybe not. You kind of get the impression though that he's always kind of panicking, like the way he kind of runs and like acts towards a player when he's defending. You always get the impression that there's a lot of pressure on him when he's doing it, and whether that's just a championship thing, maybe that is just a thing of he's not playing regular games. Because to be fair, if you're McCarthy, you don't know if there's probably a 50-50 chance that you're playing every game every week. So he's not going to know until, the couple of days coming up that he's going to be playing. And that does put a lot of pressure on you if you do end up playing, because you've kind of been thrown in and there's, I don't know.
Yeah, you probably don't feel like you're good enough because you're not playing so regularly. So you know that the manager doesn't think you're great.
Well, he's one of those he's not in our strongest 11, is he?
No.
And he knows that. And so when he's playing, he's thinking, I've got to impress the manager. Probably adds a bit of pressure, adds a bit of tension in his legs kind of thing. And so maybe that's why he hasn't been as good when he's playing.
I mean, one of his pluses was running up that side, wasn't it? That was definitely one of his pluses in turning defence into attack.
Yeah, but then he hasn't played right back like too
No,
much, has he? To be fair, he's playing centre back a decent amount,
you see,
which doesn't help.
I'd be interested for that lineup to be. I mean, we've got 3 centre backs and him, and
Mm.
I'd be fascinated to play the 3 centre backs and him as a right back, and whoever as the left back. I mean, Jacobson played on Saturday. He did go off injured. Didn't look bad, but you don't know, do you? Will he play him again? But it'd be interesting to see the 3 centre backs and him on the right hand side. I think that'd be quite interesting, and it's certainly an attacking line because he is a wing back, isn't he?
He's a runner, yeah, absolutely.
So I'd like to see that. And against Derby, I reckon that's worth a go. I do.
I'd say he should keep the same somewhat formation and lineup against Derby as he did against Huddersfield. There's no reason to change it.
No,
Of course,
McCreary went off injured, didn't he?
Did he?
That's why he was substituted.
Yeah. Well, I think he has a few players who he can kind of throw in and do a decent job.
Right. Horgan worried me again. I did say that in the other thing because he cost us lots.
A lot.
For Wycombe's sort of money wise. He cost us lots. And he hasn't performed, has he?
No. Well, if you just look at goals and assists, I know you can't base everything just off simple stats, but they're not high enough, quite frankly. No. And of course, I only watched the highlights of the Huddersfield game. You know, the one he got the assist actually for Mehmeti's goal, but it's not really him, is it? Mehmeti does all the work himself. But because it was the header he had towards the end when it was 2-2, I think. And it's not the easiest chance to hold, but it's straight at the goalkeeper. And you could tell when he's heading it that all he is trying to do is get it on target. And that's kind of what a player does when they're low in confidence. He wasn't trying to place it anyway. He wasn't, being cocky and trying to put it in the far corner or something, which you could kind of see as pretty much a big negative for him. Because it was just a nothing header. It was just straight at the goalkeeper, and it's one of those chances that we have to kind of take. Luckily, we did get another goal, but
he just doesn't seem to me to be a Wycombe Wanderers footballer. Even when the others aren't doing well, they're in there. Their feet are in there, their heads are in there, their bodies are in there. They're going for it. He just seems to disappear out the game.
I don't think it's due to a lack of passion or anything, because that's what you kind of associate Wycombe players with. But he just seems a bit lost, I suppose, because he's a natural winger, isn't he? Really?
Yeah.
And we're not really playing as a natural winger. He's more of an attacking midfielder as opposed to a winger.
Yeah.
And so maybe he's not really coping in that aspect. And you do get the sense that with teams lower down the league, attacking midfielders are always the ones who just go missing. Like, you don't really see them. Hence why most teams lower towards the league play maybe a 4-4-2 or something like that, because they just keep it simple and they don't try and infiltrate these other things. So maybe the way that Ainsworth is playing him, or maybe the way that Horgan is adapting to that position, isn't so much his.
I thought Mehmeti run that midfield, didn't he? Oh, you wouldn't have seen that.
Really. I can't really tell, to be fair.
He did make a couple of reasonably big errors that could have been costly, but he risked it. That was the thing. He did go for it 110%. And you thought, oh my goodness, what's he done there? On the other hand, he also, in my book, he won the game not just by being really good on the football pitch, but I think his energy and his fight and his jumping up and down run the speed of the game.
Gave you a bit of a lift.
He was, he didn't slow the game down in any form or fashion. he went for it.
Mm.
I would have liked Fred on there instead of Horgan with him. I think I would have preferred that. Trouble is, he can disappear out of the game as well. But
He can. Yeah.
But he's played well recently, and I just think it's a
Mm.
bit of a shame to take him out when he's playing well.
I was going to say, Fred's been in decent form, hasn't he?
Yeah.
But then Ainsworth does this sometimes where we seem to be playing well, and then he'll randomly just throw in like Bloomfield or someone like that.
I
And you're
know.
kind of like, why? There's no need to.
This
To
is
be
what
fair,
worries me about the Derby game. I'm scared that he's just going to suddenly, we're going to find out, you know, we're going to find Bloomfield in the midfield. We're going to find
Akinfenwa up top or
Akinfenwa
something.
up front. We're going to find, and I'm just scared he's going to take what we've got apart and kill it. I am worried about that. I don't know why he does it. I really don't.
I mean, I've just had a seminar about strength conditioning and how long it takes to recover from certain situations, certain games, and how you can keep on like improving your body throughout a week without fatiguing too much. And if it was because of that, I can understand it. If it's from a footballing perspective, I don't understand it. Because after a game, it takes you about 48 to 72 hours to fully recover. But then to improve like other aspects like your endurance, your power, strength, and stuff like that throughout the week, you have to have that decent break and then not have a game straight after. You have to have like a 3 or 4 day period where you can do these, strength and different sessions so that it does improve your game on the next Saturday. Whereas if you do play that Tuesday, you're not going to be able to have that period where you can do that. So if it's from a physiological and strength conditioning kind of viewpoint, I can understand. But
you see, I'd say he should pick the games, you see, because Derby is another game we can win.
Absolutely.
Now, if this was straight away we're playing Swansea, say, I would say, fine, I would understand it. Because the chances of Wycombe beating Swansea are pretty remote. I mean, we would be looking at a draw and consider that to be a success. Yeah. And that's slowing the game down. But if we want to win, we've got to speed the games up and hope that we score more than them. And that means if we're playing Derby, we've got to go for it.
Well, you hope that Ainsworth has seen this like 2 or 3 week period where we have a lot of games that we can win, and we'll just keep it so that the players have a 2-3 day rest. You don't worry about trying to improve other various factors during the week. You just get your best players out there and try and get the most points as possible. Then when we have our 1 or 2 games where we're playing teams that we're realistically not going to beat or potentially get a point off, then play your Bloomfield, your Akinfenwas, and see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, playing those players, it does mean you can pick up a point, but it means you won't win the game.
Probably not, no.
Okay, that's Wycombe done. Let me just write down. Number 1 was Wycombe. Number 2, the EFL. Well, I've got to just mention, I know you don't really look up too much to do with EFL, Kieran, but this is big.
Bits and pieces.
Brentford lost yesterday. That's the first game they've lost for, what is it, about 20 something or other, I think. So that was a bit of a nightmare for them. They don't lose, and they lost. So, that was interesting. I mean, they're allowed to lose the occasional game, of course. I'll let them have that. But that was a bit of a surprise. And Norwich, of course, who I said last week hadn't scored for 4 games,
Mm.
scored. And how many did they score, Kieran?
I'm going to assume about 5.
It was 4.
4. There you go.
4.
What
Yeah,
against Stoke though?
against Stoke. Yeah, didn't we?
Always, yeah.
Oh, I can't get the result. I can't get that up. It's not coming up. You'll have to tell me because I can't see any of that. So I've got a problem with my pad. It's not working very well. So actually, that was a bit of a strange one. Brentford losing. How did Swansea get on? Tell me how Swansea got on.
Swansea, they had their game called off.
That's what I was thinking. Do you know, I was thinking I can't remember what their score was. I did wonder why, and that's why. So, in fact, we've now got, and Watford. Now, Watford is definitely worth a mention. Here, this is good because this is all out of my head rather than written down. Watford was a bit of a shock because I did mention them, of course. They'd only scored 7 goals. Their front 4 had only scored 7 goals. They won
6-0.
6-0. 6-0. But the interesting thing is they left 2 of their big names out, which their fans have been screaming about getting rid of. And one was Mr. Watford himself, Deeney. They didn't play him. And the other one was Gray. And they're both the 2 that they've been playing. And they're the 2 that they reckon have caused the most problem in the dressing room, which is why they keep changing the manager. If Deeney decides he doesn't like the manager goes, has basically been the way it's been working. And this manager took a whopping risk of not playing Deeney. That could have been his job. Okay, if
He's only just got there, is he?
Sorry?
He's only just got there, isn't he?
This one, yeah. But they're not doing very well. But not playing Deeney, and if Deeney didn't like that and Gray didn't like that and they'd lost, that could have been a major problem for him. Because there is sort of background talk that Deeney decides when the manager leaves and when he doesn't.
I mean, it's quite a outside perspective and probably quite pessimistic, but Deeney's always seemed a bit of a dick, to be honest. like he has. Like he gives it quite the big one, you know. He kind of struts himself about as if he's, you know, really fantastic. He scored 7 this season, which is
most of them were penalties. If you have a look.
Were probably penalties.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, because they've scored more penalties than they have goals in open play, and he takes penalties.
He seems pretty big-headed for someone who's pretty average, quite honestly.
Yeah, that is it. And he thinks he runs Watford. He thinks he's in charge, and that's been the problem. And all the fans, all their writing up on at the Athletic afterwards, it was all sort of, you know, thank goodness he didn't play Deeney or Gray. Oh, thank goodness he didn't play Deeney or Gray. Well done to him. He didn't play Deeney or Gray. And I don't know whether they realise just what the fans think or not. I'd be fascinated to know whether they know how the fans think of them.
Yeah.
Be interesting to know that. So that's those 2. And I'm going to get to, I'm just going to say a quick thing about Derby. Now, Derby and what's happening at Derby. Just getting to where we are. Here we go. Where are the wages at Derby? I'll make this very quick. Derby and what's going on. Right. Are they selling the club or aren't they? This was again in the newspaper on Sunday that it's definitely going to be sold. Well, it's not. That's the truth. There are problems selling the club. They've lost. They haven't even handed in their accounts for 2018, 2019. Okay. They haven't even handed those accounts in yet. It's almost a year late in handing in their accounts for those years. And the reason for, they're waiting for the appeal. Derby handed in the accounts and all the information, and it went to court, and Derby won in the courts. But the EFL are appealing against Derby, okay, because they consider it to be totally wrong, all the finances. And this is how Derby have got away with it up till now. First of all, their whole structure on how to work out the cost of the stadium, what it's worth, and the players is done in a completely different way to the other 91 clubs in the Football League to make it worth more. What they've done, they sold the stadium to a new company owned by the same man, overpriced.
Nice.
Okay,
Nice.
overpriced.
Yeah.
Working on the theory it's used 30 times a year only, and they put a figure millions upon millions on top of what it's worth. Okay, that's the first thing. And the others was the way they worked out the players' value. This is brilliant. I love this. Because when you hand in the figures, you have to work out what they're all worth and you hand it in. What most teams do is I'll make it easy figures. Okay, you buy a player and you have a contract for 3 years. You buy him, let's say, for 3 million. When you've had him for 2 years, he's worth 2 million. When you've had him for 1 year, he's worth 1 million. So that when that's up, he's not worth anything because he leaves free. And that's how every other club work it. So when they then write a new contract after 2 years, and it can go back up to say, if they do another one for an extra 3, he's then worth 5 million.
Did you mean when you've had him for 1 year, he's actually worth 2 million, and when you've had him for 2 years, he's worth 1 million?
Yeah. So it goes down percentage-wise each year, unless you redo the contract, and it goes up. That's how every other club work out the player's value.
Yeah.
Okay. What they do, Derby, is he's worth 3 million when there's 3 years left on his contract. He's worth 2 million when there's 2 years left on his contract, and he's still worth 2 million when there's 1 year on his contract, and he's still worth 2 million when there's a week left on his contract. Because they consider the player is still worth that when he's on a football pitch.
Yeah.
So they do that completely differently to the other 91 clubs. Okay, so
are you allowed to do that?
Well, it went to court, and Derby got a yeah, all right, you can do that. Whereas the EFL say you shouldn't be able to, and therefore are taking Derby to court, and they're appealing against the court and what they gave. That's why they don't have the figures yet, okay, because it's going back to court. Now, where are the wages? Well, that's because the guy buying the Derby was supposed to be buying Derby at the same time that the wages were paid. So the people that would own Derby, they thought they'd be paying the wages, and they thought he can pay the wages. And it was the owner, Morris, was trying to get rid of it, saying, look, you pay the wages, I'm not doing it, hurry up and buy it. And so so they both could afford to pay the wages, but neither did.
Neither wanted to, no.
Exactly. So now the company, or Morris, who owns it, has paid the wages, because the company buying it, BZI, still don't own it. Okay. Now, that's where that is. The problem is, where does that leave the takeover? Right, this is what they're asking for. They're asking for 65 million, 40 million for the club's debt, 15 million to pay off a loan, and 10 million for the guy that owns it. These figures haven't been confirmed, but that's what most people think, all right? Now, of course, the problem with what's happened this year is Derby are even more debt. Derby have lost even more money, and this guy probably doesn't want to buy it now.
Because they're crap
And
at football
it's
as well.
costing a fortune, even more. It's he would be buying something and losing even more money in buying it. Now, this bloke is quite famous for wanting to buy a football team and never getting round to it. And on the bright side, look at it this way, he actually was in a deal to buy Liverpool a little while back, and it never happened. And then he went to Newcastle, and they did all these figures, and it got up to almost this point until he pulled out. And now he's at Derby, and Derby are getting in more debt because of COVID. And so the chances of him buying Derby are remote.
Very minimal.
Even though they keep putting in the paper he will. So for Paul, I think you're dreaming if you think it's going to be bought, but you can dream, and I might get it totally wrong. I get the football results wrong every Saturday, so you never know. But that
doesn't sound like you want this bloke as an owner anyway, to be honest.
Well, there's always that. And the guy that does own it has always said, I will look after this club if I'm still got it without selling it. And to be fair to him, he did go out in December, January and bought a whole new team for Rooney.
True.
Which is why they're winning, because the 11 players on the pitch aren't the 11 that were on there beforehand. And he's got 6 goalkeepers.
Only 6.
Only 6. So if one gets injured, he's got a choice.
Shame that we can have 6 centre backs, is it?
I mean, isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing?
You sure they're not? That's not including like under 18s and 20s.
No. You have a look. Right. So that's what's going on at Derby. Okay. EFL finished. Got any comments about that?
Yeah, they do have a lot of goalkeepers.
Right. Shall we come to before doing Europe, Kieran? Shall we just have a quick chat about? So, what is it? What rules would you change then?
Well, I mentioned it slightly to you last week, but I would change if you had to change one. I don't think there are too many that will actually be legitimate and make it a better game. You can obviously have the offside ones, but I don't think I'm the one to say what is offside and what's not.
Now that's what Paul suggested, by the way.
Yeah.
But then he does support Derby, so what does he know about football?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I would say,
sorry, Paul.
I would say to make it more interesting, have throw-ins as kick-ins. But in saying that, that would mean you pretty much get a corner every time the ball goes out of play. But it definitely would make it more interesting. Yeah. So I don't know. I'd imagine they'd include it, or like the FA would include it, or UEFA, whoever would suggest that you can do a kicking in your own half. You can't do it in the opposition half.
Right. Well, it's an advantage having a throw-in in the opposition's half, but it's not an advantage having a throw-in in your own half, I don't think. And it should be.
Teams are too good at defending throw-ins now that it just becomes a 50-50 in your own half, at least. So, yeah, that's what I would do.
Of course, you could change throw-ins. Instead of having kicking it, you could just throw it any way you like.
That's true.
That would give you a better advantage, wouldn't it?
Would also help a lot of the professional footballers who can't take throw-ins yet to,
Yeah, you wouldn't get any foul throws, would you?
No. But then if you do that, like the way you throw it, if you do it like overarm or something, if your hand goes over the line whilst you're still touching the ball or something like that, I can imagine there might be a bit of contradiction with that. So I imagine you'd probably have to step back maybe a meter and then do it.
Or it's as long as your feet are on the line.
Or feet on the line. Yeah, you could do that. Yeah.
I think that
I don't.
work, don't you?
I think that would work. 'Cause I think throw-ins are probably like the deader part of football. You could suggest.
Yeah, it is. And I have to say, I think the idea of offsides, I don't think you can change that. You see, because if you took offside out, I mean, somebody could just stand on the line for the whole
Oh,
game.
you can't take
It
offside out.
stretched the game too much.
Was it Wenger suggested that you could, so to be onside, like any part of your body has to be in line with the defender. So you could have 99% of your body offside, but if the 1% is onside, then you're onside as such. I don't know whether that would work. I don't think it would make too much. I don't think if that was the rule, no one would complain. I don't think. But I don't know whether that make a difference really.
It's just if you take offside away and you've got sort of, you've got Mr. Leicester standing there on the edge of the 18-yard box for the game.
Stuffed. Yeah, no, you can't take offside out.
You would take your defenders out of the attacking game because they would have to defend for the whole match, even though they're not in it.
I mean, your back four would just be on the goal line. That's all they would do.
Yeah,
it's like having your zones in netball, isn't it? Because each player has to be within a certain zone. That'd just be essentially that. You'd have your 3 attackers and 4 defenders in that box, midfielders in that box, and defenders and attackers in that box. Midfielders don't really need to be a thing if you don't have offsides, to be honest.
Table football is what you're talking about.
Yeah, essentially. 6-a-side when you were 7 or 8 years old and didn't have offsides back then. That was always fun.
It's the same as people talk about a sin bin. There's the problem with the sin bin is as soon as you take players off for 10 minutes, rather than giving them a yellow card, is that the team that have lost that player will just go totally into defence and kill the game for 10 minutes.
Yeah. And if you do that, then the chance of them doing more tactical fouls will probably increase, and so they'll get even more yellow cards until eventually they have like 6 or 7 players on the pitch.
Yeah, more to risk.
Yeah.
Because I think the best thing to do about yellow cards is I think you get 2 yellow cards and you don't play the next game.
You don't anyway.
What if you get one game? No, I mean one game instead of it being 10 or 15 games until you miss one. I think you make it 2 games. You give a yellow card one match, you do it the next match, you miss the next one.
I suppose you could say that's fair.
So it's like a sin bin, but it does mean you're losing your best players a lot quicker.
But what is the actual negative of getting yellow cards football? Hence why you have to keep them out of a game, if you know what I mean. Like, is getting a yellow card that bad that you have to keep them out of a football match? If you see what I mean.
Yeah, and the other problem is refereeing. Referees. I mean, the one we had at Wycombe on Saturday, I didn't say on my video, but I looked him up and he hands out 8 a game. Whereas you go to another referee who hands out 2 a game. I mean, because then people would start arguing about yellow cards, wouldn't they? And it'd start going to the FA to check out, or whoever to check out the yellow cards because it'd mean much more. I think that's difficult.
You could get, I mean, there'd be even more complaints about getting a yellow card for something very small that the referee is given, and then bloke misses the next game, which might be a very important game.
Yeah,
it's like for red cards, given 3-match bans. 3 matches is a flipping long time.
Yeah,
depending on who that player is, like that can really affect that team.
Maybe make it, 6 yellow cards. I don't know what it is now, but it's not enough to make a difference.
Wasn't it 5?
Is it?
Isn't it? Is it every?
I should look that up.
It's 5, 10, 15, 20, I think.
Right.
But then on the 10th one, you miss 2 games. The 15th, you miss 3 games. 20th, you miss 4. If that makes sense.
Right.
I think that's what it used to be.
And the one I would do, I've thought about this one a lot because Wycombe were really good at wasting time last year when we were top of the table. Now we get it all the time because we're losing. And I get fed up with players rolling around the floor dying when they haven't been touched. I get fed up with when the ball is going off the player. Oh, he couldn't stop in time and kicked it over the stadium and that sort of thing. I get fed up with that. And what I would do is it would be 30 minutes a half. Okay. But I would then add 10 minutes at the end. So it'd be 30 minutes. Then it goes into a 10-minute spell at the end where you kick the ball off and the clock stops. When the ball is not in play for the last 10 minutes, the clock stops. So if you rolling around the floor, the stop is clocked. The clock is stopped. You kick when it goes off for a throw in, the clock is stopped, etc. The ball has to be in play.
Why only for the last 10 minutes? Why not the whole time?
Well, it could be the whole time. Make it 30 minutes aside, and like rugby does. Rugby does the same.
Yeah.
And and it's not up to the referee. You have a klaxon that goes off at the end of the game, so we don't have that stupid scenario where Song scores a goal outside of the time up against Wycombe Wanderers in the FA Cup, where the referee is waiting for the ball to go out, even though time is up, to blow his whistle. And of course, that was the ball going in the net when he should have blown his whistle 30 seconds earlier.
Yeah, that does make sense because there's been a few, hasn't there, recently about when the referee blows their whistle at half time. There's one yesterday for Man United, which was, it shouldn't even be a debate. It was a stupid one because it was about, I think there was 2 minutes added on and it was 47:08 on the clock or something. United were in their own half, but they had maybe a 4-on-2 attack. And the referee blew his whistle because, of course, he should, because United only just got the ball. And they were complaining at the referee for a good 2 minutes, like outside. And it's just like, of course it's half time. Like, why are you even complaining? But doing that would reduce, that debate.
Yeah. Or the rule is when the ball goes out, the clock stops, and once the time is up, next time the ball goes out, time is up. But as long as the rule is set, this time it has to be set. So it can't just be up to the referee. He looks at his clock, he sees time is up, and he decides he can, is he a Man United fan or not? Is he a Tottenham fan or not? Makes his mind up. It's not right. There's got to be a rule to it. Otherwise, nobody actually really knows. I'm not picking on Tottenham or Wycombe game. It's just the one I remember, and it happens for Wycombe. It happens for every team, but nobody actually knows when time is up.
But isn't this what causes so much debate in football? What we'll do, these rules changes that we're suggesting, if we were to do these, there'd be less debate in football. And isn't that one, the people at the top of the football hierarchy they want people talking about football all the time, whether it's contentious decisions or anything else?
Well, in that case, what you'll just have is an argy-bargy, no fouls count. Then that'll have something to chat about, wouldn't it?
That would be fun.
That'd be fun. I think they call that wrestling, Kieran. I think.
Yeah, or rugby even.
Okay. Next conversation. Blimey, there's so much to go through. We won't go through it all. But European Cup, I've got to hand this one out because, of course, we got the European Cup coming up this week and next. Now, what happened on the 21st of January, FIFA, along with other football confederations, had a big powwow with UEFA. And they came up with any player that joins the European Super League, that is all the teams getting together and sorting their own stuff out, would be banned from playing in anything else, i.e. for their country or any other European competition. So the question is, why are they so scared? Well, in 2024, the European sponsorship broadcast rights come to an end. And this is why it's reared its ugly head. It's because we only have the European Cup as it stands until 2024. And somebody is going to have to make a decision on what happens to the European Cup in 2024. And that's not far away. Now, back in 1968, there was a chat by the richest clubs about sorting their own league out. And it's been going on for a very long time. And one day it will happen. And is it now? Well, here we go. Already, the richest clubs become richer because of the European Cup. They've sorted it out because UEFA have been terrified of the top teams running away because they make so much money. In fact, they make more money than FIFA make, which is why FIFA are opening their mouth. They're trying to get involved because they want the money. Everybody wants the money. And so, as it's set up, they're handing the money out to these top teams already to make sure they just keep quiet and do what UEFA and FIFA want. Because if they don't, those two organisations will lose all their money. Okay, so, but the problem is, why do the teams want a Super League? It's because they want the money. They want even more money. And PSG, Juventus, Bayern Munich, they're bored, and so are their fans, because they win their league year in, year out, and it's boring. And they're losing TV money because nobody wants to watch them anymore. Because it's boring.
Yeah. Good riddance, though, because they made that league boring.
Yeah, because they wanted a European Championship that they win every year, or at least get into, and then they rake the money in more than the other teams in their league get. So they're super. Whereas all the little teams below them don't stand a hope. So they win it again next year, go into Europe, grab a ton more. They don't. They win it again this year, go and grab a load more. And they've as good as created this ridiculous scenario themselves. But people are bored. Nobody's interested in German football. Ask BT who watches it. Seriously. I mean, I see you sat there with your yellow and black top on.
I just like Dortmund.
But it's boring. Okay. Now, what about our league? Let's go on about how bored people are in our league. And you said you wanted a chat before we go into, well, shall we talk? Yeah, no, we'll come back to boring and Manchester City, shall we? And why nobody's interested. Right. The big clubs are also seeing their money being given away in that other little European Cup matches. I can't remember even what it's called. What's the one Arsenal are in?
Europa League.
Yeah, the Europa League. They're handing out money into the Europa League. Not very much, but as far as Bayern Munich and Liverpool and United are concerned, they're giving it away to those teams that nobody's interested in.
Yeah.
And that's true. Nobody is interested in. I couldn't even name the blooming competition.
Apart from the people who are in it, and they barely even care.
Well, most people see it as, oh my goodness, we've qualified for that. That's going to kill us.
We're playing.
We don't want to play all those games.
Oh. Yeah. Essentially.
Yeah. So, what happens with this? Basically, they want more money. They don't want their money given away. They want it. They no longer make... Right. So, the cost for the best is they want it. But the problem is Barcelona, even in the European Cup, hardly ever play Liverpool. They want the big games. If you look up till now, the European Cup, who's played who, where are the biggest games? How often do Liverpool play Barcelona in the European Cup?
I think we've played them. If you're going off both legs, we've played them 4 times in the last 20 years. I think.
Exactly. You've got it. Now that is what these top teams have a problem with. They want those games more often because that will bring in more money. As far as they're concerned, the more times they play the biggest against the biggest, the more money it'll make. So UEFA do not want these teams breaking away, so they've come up with their own plan for 2024. I'll whiz through this. Okay, what they want to happen is, first of all, the top teams don't want to have to qualify, but they will have to if they go along with UEFA. Also, they wanted these games to be played on Saturdays, but UEFA are saying no, it's weekdays, so that will have to happen. So what they've come up with, instead of 8 groups of 4, it's going to be a 36-team league in which you play 5 home games and 5 away, and then it goes to a knockout stage. How they work out who plays who for those 5 home and 5 away is worked out what they call a sort of a Swiss workout. It's like they use in chess. It's a very strange rule, but basically you will end up with the teams playing the right teams, and I think it's a bit of a fiddle, but anyway.
Of course it is.
Yeah, but that's what happened. You'd have one whole big league of 36 teams, you'd have 5 home games, 5 away, and then you have the top teams playing the top teams in a knockout tournament. So even if you come top, it doesn't matter. It just means the top team plays the 8th team, the second team plays the 7th team, like it happens in Championship if you qualify in the knockout stage.
How big are the groups? Surely they're groups of 6, are they not?
No, you would have 36 in the same league.
Oh, flipping heck. That sounds awful. Yeah, I got you.
Okay, so how does all the other teams feel about this? That other than the top 6 teams that always qualify, is I hate it, because as far as they're concerned, that will pick up so much money that they will lose. So TV will go head straight to this European competition and will drop everything else. So all the other teams see themselves as getting less, and the bigger teams getting even more. And FIFA also will be supporting this because UEFA are richer than FIFA and they want to get their hand in the pocket. The whole idea of club world football, which is what they've been trying to push along, is actually really boring, because the only people that ever would be interested is European and South American teams. There is nobody else knocking around that are worth even watching. And FIFA want to replace that anyway with a 4-yearly 24-team summer club World Cup.
It could be quite interesting. It's better than them doing the Club World Cup every year, which is pretty pointless.
Yeah.
That one I can back.
So that's what you will be getting in 2024, unless there is a breakaway. Now, what do they want? Well, what's the problem? First of all, the problems are these top teams want to control it, not UEFA. They want to create it themselves. They would have all the top team. They would only have 20 clubs in it. 15 would be permanent. They can't get knocked out of it. It will be theirs. They will own it. Okay. They won't have to qualify. It would pick up 3 times what they get now, money-wise. Okay. and it would be, again, 2 leagues of 10. They would play home and away matches. The top 4 in each league would play knockout across the divisions, home and away, but there'd be a 1-match final. All the matches except the final will be played midweek, and they're still hoping to play in the domestic leagues. This is where, now can you imagine how that would work? This is why FIFA and UEFA told them to get stuffed. You're not, if you try anything like that, you're not coming near the Premier League ever again. And they have the money to do this. JP Morgan, which is the name of the company, has agreed to finance this and get it off the ground. And there would be, of course, 5 other places. If 20 clubs are in it, with 5 other places, and they would invite, of course, the winner of the Premier League, the winner of all the other leagues, and they would get in for the following year. And then those other 15 clubs will be in it again the following year, and they would invite another 5 teams.
It's just, they're doing this because fans are finding their leagues boring.
Yeah, take it away, Kieran. I've talked.
You would hope that English teams have a bit of common sense. I know it's probably quite tempting for the owners of English teams to do this, but surely they have some common sense and know that our league yet isn't boring. And I don't think anyone can suggest it's boring yet. Okay, you may have a few people who suggest that it's the same teams winning the league every year, which is true, but then of course they are, because you're going to have a hierarchy of teams, and it is going to be, you know, the teams with the most money who do win the league. But in the last, let's say the last decade, we've had City, we've had Chelsea, we've had United, we've had Leicester, we've had Liverpool. Spurs and Arsenal have come decently close. We've had lots of teams who have won the league, and so to suggest that in terms of that it's boring, just no, it's not. And so you'd hope that the owners aren't pulled into that just yet. If you're a Juventus, a PSG, or Bayern Munich, I get it, but I think that it's your own fault. You've got to take the consequences of that, and you've got to try and find a way to make your league more interesting. Doing that obviously is a bit difficult because you can't just give your rivals a crap ton of money to go and buy out players, but then it's your own fault. But then also, when you have this European Super League, when will people get bored of that? Because that's what makes when Liverpool Barcelona does happen, it's so unbelievably special because it never happens, or it happens once every 10 years or something. And there is something special about that. The World Cup, the Euros, they happen once every certain amount of time, and that's what makes them special, and that's what makes people want to watch it more. And so if you've got Liverpool Barcelona every week, it's not that special because it will happen every week if you have this Super League. And so people will then get bored of that. So
the interesting thing is, of course, Barcelona are something like about £4 billion in debt.
Barca are stuffed.
So they want to do it for money, but where are they going to get their players to be any good in it?
It's the thing that it's not impossible for the 15 teams who are always in it. They could be really crap. We've seen the English teams this year, some of them have been really crap. Arsenal, you can imagine, will probably be in that league, and yet they're trash at the moment. Liverpool has their 8-year period where they were trash. United aren't great. There's so many, there's not impossible for teams just to go completely under and completely, off the rails in terms of a top tier European team.
See, I don't understand how they pick the top 6. It can't be the richest, because Barcelona are one of the poorest.
Yeah.
And so do they do it on the last 10 years? Or, I don't know how they pick.
I suppose you're going to have that hierarchy of, maybe it's a combination of the most fans and the most amount of money that is brought in by the fans.
Because Leicester
And so
wouldn't win
therefore,
it.
Leicester wouldn't. No, Leicester definitely wouldn't. But then, if you were to do that, I swear Everton would therefore be in it, or someone like that.
But what happens
'Cause
if the owners leave a club and it doesn't have any money anymore? You see?
there's so many negative aspects and detrimental impacts that it could have that means that it's not worth it from a fan's point of view. It would be beneficial to maybe the top 5 or 6 teams in the world, I think, if they did do it. But that's about it. But then if you're going to get banned from a World Cup, if you're a player, you're going to get banned from a World Cup, you're not going to go. Surely. You're not going to want to join a team that
How
means that you
long will
can't win the
that
World
be,
Cup.
though, before they change that? What worries me? Well, in fact, I mean, is it a worry? Would it be a bloody bonus to everybody else if they just bogged off, to be honest? I mean, I've lost a bit of interest in the Premier League. And although Wycombe are now in the Championship, I was watching a lot more Championship football than I was Premier League football because it's a competition. And on that topic of competition, Kieran, why do we find Manchester City so boring? And who gives a monkeys whether they win now? Because nobody cares.
No one cares if Man City do well because the rivalry built up between United, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal have been built up over so many years, and these classic games you've got in your head of Arsenal and United fighting it out for a title. They all have history between each other, and they've all been built up prior to the money. They've all been built up in a decent way, and have got so much history of winning a Premier League, etc. Man City were bought in 2009 and no one cared. It could have been anyone. Like, it could have been Fulham. We could be talking about why is the Premier League boring because Fulham have bought the league. Man City are just... basically, if United win a league, I care because it annoys me that Bruno Fernandes is doing as well as he is. It annoys me that United are above us. It annoys me that Leicester twatted us 3-1 on Saturday. But Man City beat us, and it's like, they probably should because their team costs about £10 billion. It doesn't mean anything. if they do well, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't make me feel annoyed or angry that they do well because you just kind of expect it. And there's barely any Man City fans to say, "Oh, our team's better than yours," and so therefore it just doesn't mean anything.
I mean, they play great football, okay? But what is the entertainment? Is the entertainment going, sitting, watching your team win, week in, week out, knowing they're winning, knowing they're going to win, and knowing they're not going to lose, and they're going to play great football? Is that entertainment? Or, like I listened to a programme the other day where it said, right, everybody's interests are now in, and we're going to start in the bottom of the Premier League, where there is still competition. We don't know who's coming down. They're fighting. This is interesting. And because now the fight for the league isn't interesting.
It's over. Yeah.
So it's a waste of time now. They might as well just give them the title and let's all bog off. It's not interesting anymore. And we want entertainment. And surely the entertainment has to be unpredictability, isn't it? Because you see, with Liverpool, you could have said they were predictable last year. But the year before, they were sort of predictable but didn't win. So that was interesting. They daren't lose and they couldn't quite. Last year, it only lasted a year and everybody probably felt, unless you hated Liverpool, you probably felt they deserved it and it was interesting. This year, if they'd done the same, it would have peed people off because it would have been uninteresting. In fact, people enjoy Liverpool not winning, and they still go on about, wow, they beat Liverpool. Well, it's not the same team. That's the first thing. But they still love this. They beat Liverpool, and one of the most interesting teams in the Football League is Leeds.
I knew you were going to say that.
But why?
Because they score goals, they concede lots of goals. You don't know what's going to happen before
you don't know what's going to happen, and that surely is it. You don't know what's going to happen, and isn't that it? What's the point of watching a team that's going to win every game? What's the point?
They played. So Man City played Spurs, didn't they, on Saturday? And
did they? I don't know.
They did, and you're kind of going in thinking Spurs should be one of the teams who, put up a good fight against Man City. What was the score? 3-0.
It's just great, isn't it?
They didn't have De Bruyne. They didn't have Aguero. They didn't have flipping David Silva. What's even the point?
What's the point? And
they beat Liverpool 4-1.
So that's why nobody gives a monkeys that Man City are winning or losing, isn't it? Who cares that they win the league? Nobody cares. It would be more interested in Arsenal versus Spurs game than they will in Manchester City playing any other team. What's the point?
Because there's deep rivalry in Arsenal Spurs, and there's deep rivalry in lots of other things. Portsmouth versus Southampton. That's a bigger game than Man City, Man United.
Yeah.
It means a lot more to people.
Man United fans, who would they rather win or lose? Liverpool or Man City?
They want City to win it, don't they?
They do. And that tells you, doesn't it, really? So Man City, I'm sorry, but you're boring, Manchester City. You're boring. Nobody cares. Do you know that?
You can join the Super League. We'll stay here.
You can bog off and go with Bayern Munich as far as we're concerned, and Barcelona, because we're really, really not interested. Okay, so should I say things like that?
Ep is watching this, just crying.
Yeah.
He's not happy.
Yeah. But in fact, if you were to take them out of the scenario,
would be a good league, this, wouldn't it?
It would, wouldn't it? It would be still very entertaining.
Very interesting. Because there's probably 8 teams who could win it then.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
So that tells you enough, doesn't it? And let's be frank about this. They were bought. And I know all those teams have got a lot of money, but it all
stems from somewhere.
Yeah. So that I'll cross off Manchester City. Shall I call this bit Manchester City boring, or who cares? Something like that.
Who cares about Man City?
Who cares about Manchester City? Okay. And I don't know how long we've been going now.
It's an hour.
Is it an hour?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to do the next bit, or are we not or shall we leave it there?
What is the next bit?
Well, it was going to be looking at the scores, predictions.
Should we just do a few little predictions?
Yeah, we'll leave out things like Bale and what the bloody hell's happening with Bale. Why did they buy Bale? Nobody knows. So there you go. That's Bale sorted.
Yeah.
Other question: why does Fred lay behind the wall? Well, is it because he's brave or short, and there's no point in him standing up? We're not sure, really. He might as well have a lay down and a break.
Yeah. It takes out the option of them going under the wall, but no one's really good enough to do that anyway, unless you're very.
Can you imagine if they did though? Would you want to lay down there?
No, because you look like an idiot.
I mean, if it's a sort of Brighton person taking the free kick with their quality of hitting the ball, yeah. I mean, if they went for the top corner, you could still get it in the face.
Yeah. They're playing West Brom, for crying out loud.
Right, shall we start there then?
Start where?
Well. After my piece about Sam Allardyce that you can watch on CHAIRBOYS Chat 14, did you watch it, Kieran?
I did.
I know I gave you the notes.
Yeah.
Do you like the background?
I loved it. It was really good, mate.
Took ages to put up there because it's
Sure it
slower to put up if you've got
Mm.
that background on the green screen. That's why I don't use it on this one, because it's an hour and something long. Yeah, so West Brom, Brighton are a great team. I think they look so good. They just need a striker.
Who are you saying this about? West
Brighton,
Brom?
I think they look really good.
Brighton aren't playing
Brighton.
West Brom.
I've seen them a few times, and I think Brighton look good. They just can't score a flipping goal. If you look at there's that new thing of, how many goals they should score in a game. What's it times?
They should have smashed Aston Villa on Saturday, Sunday, whatever it was.
Yeah, because Aston Villa had a dire, but that's not Tottenham, by the way.
No.
But Brighton they should have won.
Really good, really good. Yeah.
But they just can't, can they? I feel a bit sorry for it. They need to go out and get somebody that can hit the ball in the goal.
Not Welbeck.
Not Welbeck, no, not Welbeck. But then they don't have much money, and the most expensive are the strikers, aren't they?
Indeed.
Right, and the next one.
Were you suggesting that Brighton were playing West Brom?
Yeah, I thought that's what you just said.
No.
Oh, right. Okay, who are they playing?
Well, the first one is Wolves versus Leeds. I don't know what you're looking at.
Yeah, all right. Wolves versus Leeds.
Should be good.
Wolves won, didn't they?
Yeah, their striker Neto looks really good. And I can imagine with Leeds' defence, I reckon it'll be I reckon like a 3-3 or something.
It's going to be something like that.
It's high scoring, and I hope it's a high scoring draw.
Yeah. If anybody, I don't have a clue, and I don't think nobody else does either. I bet you the betting on that be really entertaining.
Yeah, I don't think I'll whack £1 on that one.
No, I'm not going to answer that question because nobody could even. If anybody thinks they have a right to even think of a score, well, good luck to
them. Southampton, Chelsea.
Southampton, Chelsea.
Southampton have lost 6 in a row, so
they are missing. I know you said I'm wrong, but they are missing 8 players. They are. I listened to that.
Yeah.
But it's not just that. They've just collapsed, haven't they?
They have a bit. And Chelsea have won a few in a row now, haven't they? So they're looking all right.
So that's a Chelsea win, isn't it?
We'll back Chelsea. We will back Chelsea.
And talking about interesting games, we're looking at Liverpool-Everton.
Yeah.
Well, Everton had a shocker.
It did. I was very happy about that because if they won, they would have gone above us.
And yet, but I thought they were desperate against Spurs as well. Really entertaining game in the FA Cup, that one. But they were both bad. That's why.
True. Very true.
And also Everton are missed a striker up front.
Calvert-Lewin. Yeah, he's out, isn't he? I don't even know what to suggest for Liverpool games anymore. If we play 90 minutes of the football we were playing in the first half and start second half against Leicester, then we should easily win. But who knows if we're actually going to do that? So,
are you gonna watch it, or are you so depressed? And
I'll watch it.
I don't want to have to give you a call again to see whether
No, what if I'm crying or not?
Yeah.
No, I'll watch it, and I have to be optimistic and back us, but I don't flip it no at this stage.
Well, I think this game is it's Everton. It's different. And I think this is good for Liverpool to have this game right now.
I think if we have
win, I think it'll give them a real boost. So I'm going to say Liverpool, and I know being at home is no big deal, but they've been losing to crap teams.
Yeah.
They've played reasonable teams. They've done a lot better.
I want to see Henderson back in midfield. That's what I want to see. Because he's had enough time at centre back.
Yeah, that's been a big mistake. They'd be better off with worse centre backs but a
Yeah.
decent midfield.
Probably true. Yeah.
Fulham, Sheffield United, got to back Fulham. They've been playing really good.
Bloke yesterday, Madger, I think his name is, looks really decent. So yeah, I'll back for them. So Sheffield United, just nah.
And we got
Don't
Burnley,
fancy
West
them.
Brom.
That's probably the.
Come-
It's probably one of those boring games you'll see this season on paper.
Yeah, but West, they've got to go for it, haven't they?
I'll bet West Brom on that actually.
I hope so. I hope so.
Yeah, make the relegation battle a bit interesting.
Yeah, especially if Fulham win.
As
Let's
well.
get them
Yeah.
up there. Let's get both of those teams
Yeah.
up there. Have a bit of fun.
Sheffield, you can just bog off.
Yeah. Right, Arsenal City. I think if anybody can upset City, it's Arsenal, because I think
Wow.
they have brilliant games and they have desperate games.
Mm.
And I think if they're brilliant, they'll beat them. If it's desperate, they'll get slaughtered.
I mean, the only thing I would say is that they did concede very easily to Leeds yesterday, which I can imagine they could do against City. But if Aubameyang is on point, and I think it has a lot to do with Arteta's team selection, because if he picks players like Pepe or there's just a few crappy players at Arsenal who
Pepe has
when
played
they
well, I thought.
he did against Southampton, I think, but in my
You could
opinion,
say
in these
anyone could
in my opinion, in these sort of games, he never does anything, and so I think
what you want is you want City to play Gabriel up front.
yes, you do. But I will back.
Then
I'll back a
Arsenal
draw.
have a chance.
I'll
You're
back
going for
a draw. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to back Arsenal mainly out of want rather than.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put money on it.
Oh, absolutely not.
No.
I would put money on Newcastle beating Man United, because that'd be hilarious.
So would I, because they've upped it, haven't they, Newcastle? And did we say this? But you know all that stuff I did on Sam Allardyce and using all the sort of, the right moves on an iPad, and how they check the heat and where players are, and using a bit of skill and science. Did you know out of all the top teams, the one team that doesn't do any of that is Man United?
You sure?
Yeah, they've never put it into practice. They've been talking about it for years, but they've never actually put it into practice. So when Solskjaer decides what he's going to do on a football pitch, it's out of his head and advice. None of it is sat there in front of a computer checking out players' fitness, where they run, how fast they are, how slow. Man United is the only team out of the top 6 that do not use any of it. They've been meaning to, but have never got round to it.
Well, you haven't got round to it.
Isn't that amazing? Don't you think that's amazing? But wouldn't that answer a lot of questions?
Probably, yeah. That's got
back. There's a snag with the Newcastle. Can I just say, Callum Wilson won't be playing.
Yeah, but Saint-Maximin will, and I'll back him to run riot against United. I think it could be a game where a player like Wilson would just go missing.
Yeah,
but it's more just because I want Newcastle to beat United. It'd be funny, out more than anything. So,
and the other one is Aston Villa Leicester. Well, who knows? Will Grealish get his game together? Is really the answer to that one, isn't it?
It's Grealish versus Leicester, isn't it? Essentially, I mean, again, if Leicester play like they did against Liverpool for the first 75 minutes, then I'll back Aston Villa to win.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I will back Aston Villa actually. Although they were crap against Brighton.
They were, but they can't play that crap. They've been good, so why would they play crap?
I'll back Aston Villa on that one.
Yeah. Right. Okay, we're gonna stop there, except for I just need to tell you one or two little interesting things. I told you, I think, before that there's been more away wins than home wins this year. I just want to sort of, when all the managers say at the end of the game, well, blimey, it's all down to not having crowds. Do you know what the biggest difference not having a crowd has made? Do you know there has been a third more yellow cards against the home team this season and a third less yellow cards against the away team this season because the crowds aren't having a go at the referee?
That proves a point, doesn't it? That it does make a difference.
That is, so you'll probably find there's less sending off as well. I didn't look that up, but that is incredible, isn't it? Because that would, yellow cards against fullbacks would make a difference to the game, which is probably why there's been more away wins than home wins, because they won't have yellow cards on the defence. And that would change the style of play, wouldn't it? You won't have players going off either with the risk and that sort of stuff.
It just proves a point of how it does make a difference, doesn't it?
But it has an effect on the ref, which people haven't really thought about. So there's my interesting fact for the week. If you've managed to reach the end of this, which I doubt very much.
I was going to say, yeah.
It's probably only me and you know what we're talking about at the moment. And so we'll give it a miss there. Yeah, you big chest there, Kieran. I've got
stretching. Jeez.
Okay, thank you everybody for watching this. And of course, there'll be the next one. The next video will be tomorrow night after we've slaughtered Derby. And of course, we'll be back with Chairboys Chat next Monday at 6 o'clock. Thank you very much.